disputes, sweet nature rules the day, and scatters songs and flowers along the way. And still the roses bloom, the wind shall blow, and mountains silent stand beneath their snow. Still the sun will shine, God's light to bring, and still at dawn and evening birds will sing. What matter Democrat, Republican, cuckoo, 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 or any other group dividing man, cuckoo. Beneath our hedge, the violets grow in May, and still shall grow when we have passed away. Sun will shine, God's light to bring, and still at dawn and evening birds will sing. Shine, God's light to bring, and still at dawn and evening birds will sing, and still the sun will shine, God's light to bring, and still at dawn and evening birds will sing.
Very nice.
Was Josephine Ross's lovely poem, put to music by Ron Greenstein. And here is Josephine's daughter, Anne, who's going to tell us about life with her mom.
Jai Baba, everybody. Nice to be here today. I just wanted to say about that song that Ron just sang. She wrote that like probably in the 40s during the Second World War, and it's just so apropos for today's world. It's like she wrote it yesterday. Anyway, it's a very I like the way I like the arrangement especially. So today is the anniversary of Josephine's passing in 1998. She was 91 years old. She managed to get to 98. She wanted very badly to get to 2000, but it wasn't to be. She used to make dates with people to bump wheelchairs, and then they would die off, and she'd make a date with another one. It was so funny back in those days. So her story with Baba actually starts with a little background going back to what's called the North Node Bookstore. I don't know, some of you have heard of it, I'm sure. And this was a bookstore started by Malcolm Schloss back in the 20s. It was a, I guess you'd say, I would call it a new age bookstore by today's term. A lot of spiritual and mystical books, and very interesting people would go there who were interested in these kind of subjects. And I was just thinking about this yesterday because they had a hard time keeping the bookstore going. They didn't have much money, and it nearly went bankrupt several times. But in the process of establishing a bookstore, he had a list of I think about 5,000 names of people interested in spiritual and mystical subjects. So when Baba was coming to America, he used that list to let people know, people who might be interested in Baba. So a lot of people came to this bookstore. And one of the people who met Malcolm and his wife, Jean Adriel, was my grandmother, Mary Ann, which some of you have heard of her, I'm sure. She was quite well known back in the 1900s. She wrote a story of her life, which became very popular at the time, called The Promised Land. And you can Google it and find out more about it if you're interested. Anyway, Mother heard about Mayor Baba coming to America for the first time in 1931. And Jean Adriel was friends with a woman who had property up around Harmon area, which is 30 miles north of New York City. And when she heard Baba was coming to America, she asked Jean she asked her friend if she had some property, a house where Baba could stay with 6 people he was bringing with him from India. And her friend agreed right away, and also didn't charge anything when she heard that it was Mayor Baba coming. She was interested in Mayor Baba. So they had this beautiful house on Harmon, which there are pictures out there which you probably see, and I don't know if you can see. If I hold this up, can you see it? No, you can't. Not real clear. Anyway, there's pictures in a nice spread in the Glow magazine and several other places of the property itself. And when Baba came, he came in November of 1931, and there were a few people waiting at the house to greet him. And about 5 people, I think, and Mary Ann was one of the ones that was there to greet Baba. And when she met Baba, she was so carried away by his persona, being in Baba's presence, that she urged my mother, Josephine, to come and see him too. At the time, Mother was she was 23. She was just a week away from her 24th birthday. And she came to meet Baba, and she was one of the people that when she met Baba, there were some, like Elizabeth Patterson had a similar experience. When they meet Mayor Baba, they immediately recognize him as the Christ. And she wrote up her story very beautifully, and also it's in the Glow magazine and other places, about how he appeared to her. And she became a lifelong follower of him from that first meeting on. And the other thing that happened to her when she met Baba, she had never written poetry before in her life, and she started writing incredibly beautiful poetry to Baba. That's how she started with her poetry. And since I mentioned that, maybe I'll take time just to read one of her poems to give you an idea of how Baba struck her. This one's called "Thy Beauty, Lord, is like 1,000 blossoms. Thy beauty, Lord, is like 1,000 blossoms that lift their fragrant petals to the night, and all the myriad jewels of the stars are pale beside the radiance of thy light. Thy purity is like a crystal lake, reflecting on its surface calm and still, a crescent moon, and all thy true perfection, the lonely deserts of my heart doth fill. Let me kneel in rapture now before thee, and gaze forever on thy radiant face, eternally enchanted by thy beauty, uplifted and enlightened by thy grace. For in thy presence there is joy forever, and from earthly fetters sweet release. Let me kneel in spirit now before thee, and lightly touch by shining robe of peace. So you can see that she was transported to a different place. She was kind of, I would say, in ecstasy almost. So people came to, I mentioned they sent the mailing list out, and they ended up, I think, out of the 5,000, they picked 350 that they thought might be interested in Baba. And these people would be coming for meetings with Baba, their own personal time with Baba during the month that he stayed at Harmon. And Mother, because she had had secretarial experience, got to stay and help Malcolm with correspondence. So she got to stay at the house, and her mother also, for the whole month that Baba was there. And also after Baba left, they stayed there until he came back again. He came back again in the spring of 1932 in May. This is in November of 31 that he first came to America. Some of the people that met Baba at that time were Elizabeth Patterson and Marina Matabelli, Nita DeCaro, and others that you've probably heard of, but those are the ones that really stand out in America, among the American group that met him at that time. And a lot of them had similar experiences where they just recognized him as somebody that they had known before. Mother also would write letters to Baba, and sweet little letters from the time that she was there at Harmon with him. And there's a nice little one here. She wrote December 10th. This is after Baba left. Baba left, I think, December 6th. And after being with Baba for a whole month at Harmon, it was a real wrenching for him to leave. And she really felt the pangs of separation. So she writes from, they called it Mayor Ashram, December 10th, 1931. Dear, dear Baba, someday when it gets too lonesome here without you, I shall make myself a pair of wings and come flying over the sea to you. No matter where you are, I will find you and I will knock on the door of your heart. And if you open it just a tiny bit, I will slip in and hide there forever and a day. So do not be surprised if you hear me knocking someday, because it is very lonesome here since you have gone. And although I try to find you in my heart, I don't succeed very well. We love you and miss you and count the days until you come again, Joe. So she really poured out her heart to him in these letters. And I didn't know for years, I think it was only in the last maybe 10 years or so, that I became aware that these letters were actually saved by Baba and India, and they're all now being archived. And in our family, Mother never wrote letters at all. She had the reputation of never writing a letter, or taking a long time to write a letter that was due. But she wrote so many letters to Baba, and to find these letters years later, I mean, you can't imagine how that was for me to read these beautiful letters that she wrote to Baba. And she would write poems and she would send them to Baba in India, and those are all saved in the archives also. So there were some that I hadn't seen until I got to India myself, and people showed them to me. And she did publish her book of poems finally in quite a few years later, and then we republished it once, and it's recently been republished again by Shariar Press. This is the cover of it. Can you see that? So Shariar has it if anybody's interested in getting their own copy. Even after she met my father and they were married in 1937, she still would write poems and send them to Baba. And at one point, my parents wanted to have a retreat center. They had 5 acres of land they bought down in the Pine Barrens of South Jersey, and they planned to have people come there. I think they had some idea along the lines of what the center is actually, but it never materialized. But she would write these letters to Baba offering the place to him and telling him if they could stay there. You know, if he was going from New York to the center, they could stop in New Jersey and visit and stay overnight. So cute. I got a kick out of it. Like I could see them doing that, stopping in the Pine Barrens on their way to South Carolina. But that never happened either. But I do remember having a beautiful Baba dream one time. He never actually got to the property, but in this dream, he was actually there on the property and sitting in a chair where there were a lot of people around him out in the garden area. It was such a beautiful dream, and it just kind of made me feel good to think that he was actually there when all those years they had really wanted him to come, and he didn't make it, but he was there in spirit, of course. I think I'll read you another poem now. This is one that I really like a lot. It's called Attainment. Can you all hear me okay? People hear me okay? Out of that which is imperfect shall rise that which is perfect. Out of man shall rise God. Out of chaos shall come beauty. Out of darkness, light. And he who is perfect, he who is God manifest in human form, he who is all beauty and all light, he who has come forth from the womb of silence, where the flames of the eternal fire blaze. He, the ancient one and the ever young, the creator and destroyer, the splendid one in all the glory of his majesty, and the tender lover of men's souls. He and he alone shall lead mankind from the path of destruction, from the way of illusion, up the golden stairs that lead to the highest heaven, where there is peace unending and silence that has deepened through 100,000 ages until it has become a song of bliss. And he, the perfect one, shall guide in perfect man through the realms of light up to the very throne of the infinite being, and shall lift for him the veil that hides the face of the eternal. Then shall man see, and seeing understand. Then shall chaos give birth to beauty, and darkness to light, and man shall stand at last, perfect in his divinity. Well, most of these poems are written probably in while she was at Harmon and shortly thereafter, and then in the 40s. But she did continue to write poems now and then, I'd say, not very often, into the 90s. And this is one of her later ones that she wrote probably somewhere in the 80s or maybe even the early 90s. It's a little bit different tone from the earlier ones, but I think it's I just like it. It really touches me. It's called All That I Am. All that I have, I give to him. Each thing that comes and goes. But oh, how I grieve when each must go. He knows, he knows, he knows. All that I want, I give to him. Desire upon desire. Till at last they are all destroyed in his sacred cleansing fire. All whom I love I give to him, for they are no longer mine, and he will protect and cleanse them too in the arms of love divine. All that I am I give to him, of talents and gifts of art, till all are gone, and I rest at last within his sacred heart. But she still retain the flavor of what it was like to meet Baba, but I particularly like that one because of where she was in her life at that time. She also wrote some beautiful poems to my father when they were first in love, I think. And Ron had set a couple of them to music that were quite pretty. And you want to do one, Ron? There.
All right, yeah. Well, all right, we'll play
Okay.
this one. Oh, what you say?
Betty
Go
is
ahead.
going to
Oh, the
play
one called
play one of
Enduring.
the song called "Meeting with a Fellow
Yeah,
Disciple."
that
Actually, I call it "Out of Eternity," but the poem is called "Meeting with a Fellow Disciple," and that is surely about your parents coming together and when they and parted. So if you want to play that one at this
I'll play
point,
it now.
Betty.
Okay. Now there's
You'd like
not a video with it. You'll oh dear, I'm sorry. That was my telephone falling. So we'll just hear the SoundCloud. We'll see the SoundCloud.
But let me just say that I believe your parents met at Harmon on the Hudson at that first time. Isn't that true?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so? Because
Daddy was never at Harmon on the Hudson.
it wasn't at Harmon on the Hudson.
He wasn't there. No.
He wasn't there because wasn't his sister there?
His sister
Meredith Starr
and Meredith Starr were there. Yeah.
oh, okay.
I
Okay.
just saw.
misunderstood then.
I actually just saw a letter. I was reading her letters, and she wrote that she met him in 1933, which would have been after they had left Harmon.
Right.
But I don't know where exactly.
Mhm.
You know, we all have pieces of this story. I found this lovely description kind of their, I guess you could say could I read that, Anne? I know you're the expert. I found a really lovely description it was from the Love Street Lamppost about their meeting or their getting together, I guess. It's a couple of paragraphs. Could I read?
I don't know exactly what it is, but go ahead.
Okay. Just a sec. I gotta hang up the phone. Sorry, my phone fell and I had to. Okay, so I'll try to read loud, Anne, so you can hear this. So she says, here, I should, let's see. You know, I'm going to share this. You can take a look at it while I read it. Okay. Okay. So here's beautiful Joseph.
Oh, this is what I actually wrote this myself.
Yes. You want to read it? Yeah. Do you want to read it? I was thinking I would just read the sweet little.
You read it.
All right.
That's
Okay.
a picture of her when she was about 7 with a big bow in her hair.
So, well, I'll just, let's see. On his way to America, Baba had visited England and spent 10 days at the retreat at East Chalicombe in Combe Martin, established by Meredith Starr, who was Josephine's brother-in-law. Married to Kenneth's sister. Let's go on. Okay, one of the early English group gathered there was Mother's future husband, Charles Kenneth Ross, who was the brother of Meredith's wife, Margarita. He also accepted Baba as his master. Now we're talking about Kenneth, Josephine's husband, and became a lifelong disciple. He is the one who played the bagpipes for Baba's subsequent visit to Chalicombe. Yeah. In 1932, mentioned in the English newspaper accounts. A few years later, Josephine Ross and Josephine then Grabau and Kenneth met in New York City through mutual friends who were interested in Baba. and they were immediately drawn to one another, as she so beautifully writes in this poem, which is the music that we're going to play. So I won't read it. I think now this is so sweet. Even though she felt a deep soul connection with him, and he told her shortly after they met that he would like her to be the mother of his children, she told him she wasn't ready for marriage. He went off for a year to Northwest Territories of Canada, and when he came back and visited her, she said, "I'll marry you now if you still want me." I love this little paragraph. So they were married in 1937, and I'll just take you to the photo. Isn't this sweet? They had a one-room cabin on 5 acres in New Jersey. So yeah. So is one of these you, Anne? One of these girls?
Yeah, I'm the cute little one smiling there. This is my older sister Margarita. She was always very serious.
Oh.
And this is in front of their little cabin. They actually got married on a shoestring. They had no money except she had $50 a month from a trust fund. He always wanted a little farm. So they bought 5 acres of scrub brush in the pine barrens of South Jersey at $5 an acre on a time payment plan. And there was a cabin. This is the cabin on the property. And when they went there, I guess in the summer, they had a tent in a cabin and a hand pump for water. And then my sister was born, Margarita was born 10 months after that. And then I was born less than a year after my sister. And she had 2 babies in diapers. And they had to first cut the wood to stoke the fire, and then pump the water by hand to boil the water to wash the diapers. I don't know how she did it. She was a city girl. She never lived like that before, but she said it was the happiest time of her life. She really enjoyed it.
Wow.
It was kind of rough for them in the beginning, but they made it. Yeah, that brings back memories of that little cabin.
What a sweet picture. I'm going to play that out of the song now, Out of Eternity.
Yeah, that's a beautiful song.
Out of eternity, you come to me. I look into your eyes, and there I see myself reflected. Oh, in what dim past were we two parted, not to meet at last under these newest skies, in this strange place. What destiny now brings us face to face in this strange place? Your hand and cannot draw away. Must you depart so soon? Could you but stay? What mysteries we might unravel here. We meet but for an hour. So dear you are to me. I cannot bear to part with one who dwells so deeply in my heart. I cannot bear to part out of eternity. eternity to come. And then into eternity you go
So, yeah, beautiful. And we're, oh, sorry. What? Sorry, that's the one we just heard. Okay. So Anne, I was wondering if you could tell us, your folks married and there was that wonderful time on the farm. Could you tell us about your life? I know your dad passed early, but can you tell us about your life after the farm?
After the farm?
Yeah.
talking about?
Well, your dad passed. That's such a major, it was early. Was that right? I mean, he was young.
Yeah, that was a very, very rough time in our lives.
Imagine, yeah. Your mother had 3 children to
Pardon me?
support. Your mother had 3 children to support.
Yeah. Well, first of all, because she didn't drive and we lived way out in the country, there was no way we could stay there on the farm. So she had an aunt who lived in Albany, New York, which is 300 miles north. And her aunt kind of persuaded her to come up there to relocate to Albany. And so she subsequently did that. And she had been on the farm for like 17 years without much contact with the world outside. But she had so much courage. I always was amazed at the courage that she had to start her life over again and go and get a job in an office after not being a secretary for all those years. But she did, and she got a little apartment, started life over again, and with the 3 of us, 2 of us, my older sister was living with her aunt, and we were actually only 25 miles from Dean and Darwin Shaw, so that made it nice because they had meetings there on Saturday nights at the Shaw's house. So it was not too difficult to get there. I had to go by bus because we didn't have a car at the time. But some mother reconnected with the Shaws, and she hadn't seen them for many years because of us living so far away. But they had been very connected in the early days. In fact, mother was the first one that Darwin met of the people at Harmon. He came there in 1932 to try to meet Baba. He saw a little teeny blurb in the Schenectady Gazette about Baba coming to America. And he decided to go in and see him because he always had the feeling that he would meet God someday, that Christ was going to come back and that he would meet him. But he got there too late. He waited till Memorial Day, till the holiday, and Baba had left already. But mother met him at the door and invited him in, and her mother was there too, and he stayed, and he actually connected with Baba internally. He had written a letter to Baba and mailed it, and Baba was answering him at the table while they were having dinner. So that was his first inner contact with Baba, and he became a lifelong follower of Baba's too. And later on, my mother and daddy got married, and he was the best man at their wedding. So it was really nice for her to have that Baba connection after having her whole life kind of blown apart, after my father died. But it was very, very difficult in those years. A very small apartment and a job that didn't pay very much, but she did manage to pull it all together. But it was difficult.
Now, can I ask you what did you think? How did you feel about Baba in your life, in your with your mom and your sisters? How did you have any memories? Or I know I just saw a picture, I can show it, of you and your sister and your mother at the big dinner at Delmonico's.
Oh,
So,
that was one of the high spots. And after my father passed, was getting to go to see Baba in New York at the Delmonico Hotel at the dinner at Longchamp. She actually, as I mentioned, that she had started her life again and with a job that didn't pay very well, but she decided we were going to go, and she borrowed $50 to take my older sister Margarita and I to the dinner. Oh yeah, we're over there in the corner.
here's
That's
Joseph,
Mother. That's
Josephine and her two daughters, yeah?
That's me in the middle, and that's Margarita, and this is Lowell Shaw,
Lowell Shaw.
and this is
Leatrice.
Renee Shaw, or Leatrice
Yeah.
and Renee Shaw. And I don't know, is that Adele? Can that be Adele? I can't really see very
I
well.
don't think so. Yeah.
It might be Adele. I don't know who the lady is in the corner. Oh, that's nice. I like that picture. I don't know if I've seen that one.
This is all in this article, Mayor Baba Travels. There's a lot of photos and poems and big, yeah, it's a really,
I have to look at it.
somebody did a lot of research. Okay, so there you are. I just wondered how Baba was in your life.
Well, growing up with Baba back in the early days, it was a totally different experience from what young people have today. There was absolutely nobody within a radius of 150 miles who had ever heard of Mayor Baba. So as kids, we kind of learned to not talk about Baba much because people kind of would look at us strangely, like I remember the first time I mentioned him on a school bus. I don't know what we were talking about, but it must have been something pertinent. And I mentioned about Mayor Baba. I might have said he's God in human form or something. I don't know. I may have said something to shock them, but whatever it was, I realized that nobody else knew about him. And that really surprised me because I think when you're a kid, you expect everybody knows the same as you do, So from that time on, I guess I didn't really talk about it much to people who didn't know. But it was nice when we did get together with people like the Shaws that you could talk to about Baba. But I think what happened with, because of the circumstances of not having anybody in our lives, I think that we kind of created our own inner contact with him at a very early age. And I remember as a child, we had a connection with Jesus, and we'd heard about God, and I pictured God up there with a long white beard up in the sky somewhere, and Jesus was Jesus, I think I had a kind of a close connection with him too, but Baba was kind of like somebody I could talk to, like kind of almost like a friend as a child. I remember that having that differentiation between the three of them, but not realizing that they're all the same essentially, but having that special connection with Mayor Baba, which helped to get through various rough times in our lives that were to come. And always knowing that he's there, it's helped a lot over the years. Just to, especially now, I have to say, I don't know how people survive right now that don't know about the miracle. It's really nice to have them in our lives.
Yeah. Let's see. Now, well, would it be okay if I see if anybody has questions at this point? Anne?
Talking to me?
Yeah. Is it okay if I put it out for questions and see if anybody has a question for you about your life? Ron has a story and
Yeah, or if anybody has something they want to share, they might have, some story that they may have met. However you like to do is fine.
Okay. So Judy has a question.
Hi, Anne. This is Judy Robertson. Can you share with us more about your mother's meeting with Baba initially in 31 at East Chalacum? Any stories she may have shared with you about being with Baba and the atmosphere and what happened there, etc.?
Are you talking about my father in East Chalacum or my mother at Harmon?
I'm talking let's see, maybe, I guess I'm confused.
You said Chalacum, but I think you meant Harmon, right?
So your mother first met Baba at Harmon on the Hudson?
Yeah.
Yeah, so of her early times, your mother's like that first honeymoon period with Baba. Did you, whatever your mother may have shared with you, can you share any of that with us?
Well, as children, one of the things I remember very clearly, my sisters and I, mother would cook lentils for us, lentils and rice. And she would say, this is what Baba ate. This is what, she used to be able to take the tray up to Baba's room. She didn't actually get into the room with him, but she would take the tray up and she could see him in the room. And she would cook us, I guess they're green lentils, just plain lentils, no spice, just a little pepper and salt and brown rice. And it wasn't until years and years later when I came to the center that I realized that Baba didn't eat lentils like that. He ate them like really spicy with garlic and all kinds of Indian food in there. It was a totally different type of lentils, but as kids, we didn't know the difference, and we thought that was great to be able to eat lentils the way that Baba ate this kind of food. It was like, we thought it was really great. She also, she would talk about it quite a bit, about being there with Baba. She said that, she was downstairs and she would hear him walking up on the floor over her head, and she said it was like having God upstairs and living in the house with God upstairs, and you can just imagine how that would feel. And also when he left, I think the letter that I read indicates how she felt, how bereft she felt, and a lot of her poetry reflects that also, how she and the others, I'm sure, missed him so badly, his presence, his physical presence. She still had that connection inwardly, but I think just having him there was such an experience. And I think it's hard to explain for us who haven't had an experience that, to be actually living in the house and having him there all the time. And they would get there, they would have a couple of minutes during the day when Baba would just have a one-on-one time with all of them that were at the house at the time, just sitting with him and just looking into his eyes. So, I mean, that kind of experience you can't really even describe. I can't even imagine how that was. I try to imagine, but I can't, But I do remember also her her writing poetry. I wasn't aware at the time, I don't think, as a child, that she was sending them to India, but she would stay up quite late at night writing poetry, and sometimes she'd read them to us. And she also had a beautiful Afghan that Baba had used at Harmon. But after my father died and the house was left with no one in it for a while, and things got, vandals came in and they destroyed everything, and that Afghan was destroyed. And I often think about that, how that must have really upset her so badly. But she, through all the rough times, she had a lot of things happen in her life. She hung on to Baba and just hung on to him for dear life, and he helped her get through all those times, I'm sure. I don't know if I answered your question, but I went around, ring around the rosy a little bit.
It was lovely. I'm wondering, did your father tell you stories about Baba as well?
Well, he would talk about, he was more like his she was more like her feelings around Baba. He would talk to us about reincarnation, about things in the discourses, about sublimating your ego, about things more like the intellectual side of Baba's teachings. He would talk to us a lot. My younger sister was 6 years younger, so she didn't really get a lot of this that my older sister and I did, because we would be out in the garden working with him, and he liked to talk. So he was like teaching all the time. He was a great student of Shakespeare, and he would rattle off Shakespeare by the yard, just talking, memorizing all that stuff. And that's when he didn't talk to us a lot about his experiences like Mother did, because his experience was rather different than hers, because of the connection with Meredith Starr. So he had to kind of disconnect from Meredith Starr in order to follow Baba, and it was a very difficult process to do that. So there was a lot of I think pain there, maybe, I'm not sure. But later on, I learned more about, by reading in Lord Maher and other books about him playing the bagpipes with Baba. And there's some nice pictures of him. There's a nice picture in Kitty's book of him reading Baba onto the property at East Shalakum playing the bagpipes. And there's several newspaper articles about it. And Margaret Kress has a little story she wrote about when Baba wanted her to dance out on the hills around Shalakum with the rocks, and she didn't have the proper clothing on. She had hiking boots on, and she's like describing how she's flopping around like just looking ridiculous. And she said, and then to make it worse, Kenneth Ross picked up the pipes, and the screeching of the pipes, she didn't like that pipes. I was going to kick out of that story. I could just picture it, and then to add to all that, he had to start playing the bagpipes. But I always wonder whether Baba really liked the bagpipes or not, or whether he just kind of tolerated him playing them. I don't know. But we always like to think of him as Baba's bagpiper, because I don't think anybody else played the bagpipes for Baba.
Oh, what wonderful vignettes. If I may, can I ask one more question about, we saw the photograph of you sitting across from Leatrice and so forth. You also were with Mayor Baba, right? Back in 56 or so?
Also what?
You got to meet Mayor Baba in 1956, the picture we saw.
Well,
Please.
that's another story about that dinner is that Mayor Baba walked around the tables. We see him in the film walking around the tables, greeting people. And then they announced that if he didn't come to your table, you should come up and greet him. And for years, I wondered why my mother didn't take us up to greet Baba, because I had absolutely no memory of doing that, you know. But again, I don't know, within the last maybe 5 years or so, we were looking at a website of David Fenster's pictures of Baba all over the world, and particularly at the restaurant. And I see a picture that catches my eye, and it's my sister. My sister is, can you see this picture? No. I don't know how to put it on. Anyway, there's a picture of this young girl greeting Baba, holding his hand across the table. And I recognized from the haircut, because my sister had a little pixie haircut at that time, and she never in the rest of her life ever had her hair cut that way. And that's what caught my eye. And then I look at it more carefully, and I see that it's my mother is kind of presenting her to Baba, and my mother's talking to Era, who's across the table. So we did go up to greet Baba at his table, like he asked people to do. And then when I looked at it again, I see, oh my gosh, there's another person next to my mother on the other side. I see a shoulder and a strap of a dress. I see an ear, and I see some hair. I said, oh my God, that's me. So I must have had my personal greeting from Baba, but I have absolutely no recollection. It's totally gone from my mind. But it made me feel so good to know that I did, from this picture that I didn't get to see until I think I was in my 70s by the time I got to see that picture. Long time later.
Do you have any memory at all of being in the atmosphere of the room at that event?
Oh, I do remember how love permeated that room, and my recollection, my memory of that room is a sense of everything being pink, all pink, you know, pink for love, maybe. I don't know, but I remember that everybody's eyes were riveted on Baba in the whole room. All of us who were sitting at these little tables, we had our eyes on Baba the whole time we were in the room. It was like mesmerizing. You couldn't keep your eyes off of him. It was a wonderful experience. Very, very special.
Rosalie's got a question, and then I think we'll let Ron tell a bit of a story.
Yeah.
You know, how he met you. Okay.
Thank you, Anne.
Jay Baba, hi Anne. I remember you telling me that your mother suffered a lot from depression. And I was wondering if you could say anything about that.
Well, my mother actually suffered from bipolar. And when we initially met Baba in 1952, I remember that she had, at that time, she was kind of like on, she'd be 6 months depressed and 6 months elated, kind of like almost like a calendar, you know, it was pretty even. And that when we went to see Baba in July, that she was quite depressed at the time. I remember thinking that Baba's going to fix her. You know, I had in my mind that he's going to make her better. And he actually gave her some prasad of some type. I don't know if it was little candies or cherries or something. She was to take one every day for a week, I think it was. And there was no miracle cure at the time. I remember feeling quite disappointed because I thought for sure that, you know, he would fix her up really nicely. But she just went through the cycles for most of the time that we were growing up, I think.
Wow. How hard. What a life. My goodness. Pioneer woman and suffering and from depression and 3 children. Wow. That's amazing that she produced, such beautiful poetry. Ooh. Wow.
How old were you when your dad died?
15. I was 15.
How old was your dad when he passed?
He was only 54. Quite young.
And wow, for you, Anne, the Bible world must have changed dramatically. So when you guys were so isolated, and then your contact was the Shaws, and now there are all kinds of Bibleers and all kinds of opportunity.
Yeah, it's a lot more for young people. It's nice that they have the youth sahavas and the center where families go and the children go when they're quite young. It's very nice. And also there was no Baba music. There was maybe 1 or 2 books. It was a totally different environment than it is now. So it's really nice to see where it has evolved to a community of Baba people down here, and all the music and videos and books. It's like Christmas, every day.
It looks like your background. I don't know if you did this I'm loving the lights, and you got somebody wrote you a nice note on your door. This is your house I'm looking at. That's like Christmas. It's so pretty. So Anne, I thought I would turn it over to Ron at this point. And if something comes up, or we have more time, so we could if you have something, do you feel ready to do that? Give it over to Ron? Yeah. Are you pretty well finished? And Ron can tell that story. But
yeah, you just keep going. I thought I was done a long time ago.
Well, if something comes up,
I didn't write a little time here.
Please, if something comes up, please just interject again. Okay, so Ron, he has a story to tell. Let's see. Can you unmute yourself, Ron? There.
Yes, I think I'm unmuted now. So I met Josephine when she first came to the center in Myrtle Beach. At least that's what I was told. I think she told me herself. And that was in 1976. And it was at Amartithi time. And I was there with my first wife. And all of a sudden, here's this woman that comes on, and she was like, when we would see her at the refectory. I think we shared the refectory. I can't remember for sure, but I remember seeing her around there. And she was very lively and talkative and telling stories. And it was always dressed in a big fur coat. And so she was very impressive and kind of mysterious at the same time. So I do remember some of the things, some of the stories she told. Apparently, I don't remember well, but she played a significant part in my life through her poetry. And so the day after Amartithi, Josephine was in the reading room at the center, reciting some of her poetry and talking to a group of the people that were on the center at that time. And I was there. And at the time, I was writing songs, but I wasn't writing as much lyrics as I was feeling a draw to the guitar and various melodies that would come forth. And the idea of her poetry being a source of lyrics for songs really got stirred in me. And I had this urge to do that. I know Bob Brown had already done it. And I think two of Josephine's poems appear as the lyrics of two songs on, I can't remember which album it is, but one of his early albums. And so as I wanted to touch base with Josephine, and as she was walking out, she was being taken back, driven back to the center by Adele Walken. And so I was talking with Josephine, and Adele said, "Would you like to just come in the car with us and drive back to the center?" So I did, and I explained to Josephine that I really loved the poetry that she had read, and that I was a songwriter in search of lyrics. And the book that she read from that day is right here. This is the book that she was reading from. And the thing that blew my mind, it still does, is that she took this book and she wrote in it. I don't know if you can see, wait a minute. Yeah, see, she wrote in it. It says, to Ronnie Greenstein, may you find the music for the words. Best wishes, Josephine Esther Ross, Mayor Baba Center, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, February 1st, 1976. And she gave me this book. This was her copy. This was the only copy that I think she had, but she gave it to me. Because I said, how can I get a copy of your book? She said, here's a copy. And she gave me this copy, which was beautiful. And the charm of it was that, and the process that I went through in going through the book and reading the poems and all that, it wasn't the way a lot of songwriters might write. I can't even say that I actually wrote anything. I came up with some tunes and some chord progressions that were attractive to me. And then I just would look through the book and I would happen to come across a poem that I also liked. And if you listen to these songs on the recording of Songs of a Modern Disciple, I think you might agree with me, at least on some of them, that they really matched up really well. And that they married. And to me, the great song marries together. Now, the way I went about it was kind of more by luck or Baba's grace, that he led me to a particular poem, and it would fit one of these tunes that I had kind of generated from just spending time with the guitar and singing various ideas of melodies. So that's the way that happened. Eventually, I got the notion that some of these were worthy of recording, and I started to keep it. Well, I kept in contact, I believe, with Josephine and telling her that I was having some success, as she had hoped, according to what she had written, of setting some of them to music. And I probably sent her some recordings on cassette tape, although 40 something years ago, I can't really remember exactly. But eventually I committed to it and spent nearly 2 years recording and doing all the different things that would require, and invested way too much money than I could afford. But somehow this is what happened, and I'm glad a lot of people enjoyed over the years listening to these songs. And Baba had that in mind, I think. And let's see, what else can I say about I'm trying to remember if there's another aspect to the story. One of the things, now I don't suppose Jane Mossman is here today, but I do remember that it was Bob and Jane that picked up Josephine at the bus station. And they were also kind of blown away by Josephine, especially when they told me later that when they picked her up, she told them about taking how many buses and stopovers and stations and stuff to get from Albany to Myrtle Beach. And so one of them said to her, "So did you when you had that layover at the bus station, did you meditate on Baba's name and something like that?" And Josephine told her, "Of course not. That sounds very boring. I just had some martinis at the bar," or something like that. Anyhow, we got a kind of a kick out of that one. So a great moment, just one time that I met Josephine in a special place, special time, with a special result. So glad to be able to relate it on this day to memorialize, to help memorialize her life. And thanks, Anne, for your participation and telling us about your recollections and memories.
And we still have some time, Ron.
Or you want me to try to play one of those songs?
Oh, okay, I've got to introduce. This is my husband, Dave, here, being goofy. Okay, now, David, be serious. We're having a meeting here. Okay. So what do you think about playing, Ron? Do you want to do it?
I'll play this song it's the one that I play more often than any of the others. So I'll give it a shot. It's called Wisdom. It's also on YouTube. By the way, there was a link that went out with the little advertisement that Betty so quickly and beautifully designed for promoting this event, and it shows that on SoundCloud is a website. All of the songs are listed there, posted there under my name, Ron Greenstein, and you can listen to them as much as you like on SoundCloud. And some of them I created little videos, like we saw at the beginning of the meeting, and they're on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube page or something like that, you can spot the ones that are from Josephine's poetry.
I will post that link again. This is the link to the whole album. That's very generous, Ron. So
okay. So here's the song called Wisdom. To see the oak leaves, bronze and dry, outlined against a clear blue sky. To see the sun light up a pine is to behold an art divine. Why is it we are not enchanted? How can we take such things for granted? To build a home upon the earth, to know the miracle of birth, to feel the pulse of spring returning. Oh, watch an autumn bonfire burning. Oh, why do we seek elsewhere our heaven, when all these gifts are freely given? all around us. The beauties of his world surround us. To him who has the eyes to read, all truth is found within the seed, and in the form of bird or flower, there stands revealed the eternal power to build a home upon the earth, to know the miracle of birth. Oh, to feel the pulse of spring returning. Oh, watch an autumn bonfire burning. Oh, why do we seek elsewhere our heaven, when all these gifts are freely given?
Very nice.
Beautiful, Ron. I've known Ron for, oh gosh, at least 20 years. He's one of the main musicians in the Northern California group. He has another couple of albums that we want you back. Come on, do a concert. I'll embarrass you. You can't say no. Oh, good. Ferris Day's got a question.
And Jay, Baba, Anne and Ron, thank you for the beautiful music and the sharing. I just wanted to, of course, Ron and I go back for the Chicago Center. He was a big influencer there and provided us with a lot of books for our library and bookstore. So thank you again, Ron. Your heart is always in the right place, and you're a big Baba influencer over there. Also wanted to say thanks to Anne for allowing me to be a small part of encouraging and helping with the second publication of her mother's book, which to me touched my heart very much when I had a copy of it earlier and read some of her poems, and I've shared it at Artie early on. But what touched my heart even more so after I sat with Anne and she told me some stories, was the part she said, some of these newer poems that are in the second edition might have been poems that Josephine sent to Meher Baba, and he would carry them in his pocket. So I would like Anne to just say a few words about that, because I'm not doing it justice. But when she said it, it was just, I could just picture this beautiful Baba just tucking the little love notes in her pocket, and that touched me. So I have to run soon, but I just wanted to say hello and thanks to both of you.
Does that bring any memories, Anne, about this? What a sweet story that he would carry
Yeah,
when we were.
her Esther was such a big help to me, because I'm not very big on technology. I couldn't have probably published it, but without her help. But when I was in India in I think it was '96, I was talking to Balnath too, and he about possibly republishing her book at the time. This is 1996, and he had some handwritten poems that she had sent to Baba, and she had tied them with little yarn. She made holes and tied them like a little booklet, like maybe 6 poems, and he gave them to me to use in the new book that when it was published. So here it was. Let's it's almost 25 years it took me to do it. But then I was thinking, my God, you know, Bobby used to carry things around in his pockets, like he called it his post office, his pocket. And I was thinking, my God, I had the physical copy of what Mother had written and sent to India. I said, my God, these could have been in Bob's pocket, or, you know, been carried around, and for how long, I don't know. So it was like such exciting when I realized that. And First Day was here, we talked about it a little bit. It's nice. So I still have them. I probably should return them back to India, but I haven't done that. Very nice. Very nice of him to give them to me too.
Sweet. Why? What a personal little thing that the avatar does. Oh, let's see. Meharana. There's somebody named Meharana.
That's
Who wants
me.
to share? Who's
Yeah,
that?
it's a Ben.
Oh,
Can you see me?
Ben.
Hello,
I can't see you
Betty.
yet.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me? You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw you for a minute. Yeah. Why am I not?
So I've got a question about Anne's grandmother. Her name was Mary Anton, and she met Baba. She was like a housekeeper cook at Harmon, as I understand. And she also was a famous author of a best-selling book. And she sounded like a very interesting person. And can you tell us something more about her?
Well, as I mentioned, Mary Anton was one of the early ones at Harmon, and had heard about Baba coming through Dean Adriel. And she also wrote some very heart-wrenching letters to Baba. And she was supposed to, apparently Baba had asked her to write something, and she was having a terrible time with not being able to write, and she felt really badly about it, and wrote to Baba. Her letters are also in the archives. And she was she was actually born into a Jewish family and came from Russia as a little Jewish girl. But she was always looking for something. She was looking for answers, and she didn't get them from the rabbi first. She asked him, and she was always seeking. She was like, they tell me, a spiritual seeker. So when she met Baba, apparently Baba answered all the things all her questions, and she really gave herself to Baba totally. But this only lasted maybe 2 years at the most, and then she went off. The next thing she went after was Rudolf Steiner, anthroposophy. And I remember as a child hearing about the fact that my grandmother had kind of turned away from Baba, and how I couldn't understand that at all. How could anybody turn away from Baba once they knew him? I just could never wrap my head around it at all as a child. But what's interesting about her, even though she outwardly left Baba back then, after being with him and so totally giving herself to him for such a short period of time, in the last maybe 20 years, there's been a renewed interest in her. You mentioned her book. It was a bestseller back in the early days. It was to do with immigration and the story of her life as a young girl in Russia and coming to America. And people were calling me about, they were wanting information about her because they were writing their theses on her, actually, the master's thesis. And some of them would look her up on the internet, and they'd find out, they'd bump into Mayor Baba, and they'd ask me, like, who is this Mayor Baba? And some of them would actually mention his name in their papers. So even though she turned away from him back in the 30s, here in the the late 90s and the early 2000s, his name is appearing in books about her. Like they republished her book in a paperback form, and a professor at Harvard wrote a nice foreword to it, and he wrote about her interest in, he called him Indian mystic Meher Baba. And several others referred to her interest in him. So she's actually bringing Baba's name out there, way after she's passed over. So I thought that was really interesting. So that's her story.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, her spelling. Somebody's asking about the spelling of her name. It's Mary Antin, Antin, and the book is called The Promised Land.
There's a bit about her too in the Mary Baba Travels article that I was showing you, and she sounds like quite a radical. Sounds like radical. She could have been part of the squad. I think she would sound pretty intense. But maybe that's my. And would you say that's true? She was certainly speaking for the immigrants.
Yeah. There's also a nice chapter. There's a book written by a Sufi, Dot Cooper, about the people at Harmon. It's a wonderful book if you're interested in Harmon. It's called It's You, Mayor Baba's Life at Harmon, 1931-32. And there's a whole chapter. She did a beautiful chapter on Mary Antin and my mother, of course, Elizabeth and Lorena and Anita DeCaro and some others. But that's a wonderful book. If the center opens up again, they have it in the center library. And it's also, I saw it at Shariar. It's a beautiful, beautiful book done about that period of Baba's life.
It's called Dot. Who's the person who wrote it?
Her name is Dot Cooper. She's a Sufi.
And the book is It's You.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, Anne?
Yes.
Who did she get drawn to after Baba?
Rudolf Steiner, Anthroposophy. Am I saying that
I
correctly?
can't hear you. Oh, just a second.
Yeah.
And
Oh, Anne, can you say that again?
Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah. Now, Rudolf Steiner, Baba said, I think was either on the 3rd or 5th plane.
Oh, really?
And Ella Winterfeld was related to him by marriage. She met him as a child, Ella Winterfeld.
Who was related to him?
Ella Winterfeld.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that either.
She met him as a child, and but he was Baba had good things to say about him. So it wasn't like going from Baba to Elvis or something like that.
she was in good company. Ruth, you've had your hand up for a while now. Here.
No, that's fine. It's just such a wonderful gathering. I'm so grateful, Anne. Thank you so much. It's been beautiful. You've had me in tears more than once. I just wanted to also say, Ron, when you started playing, thank you for playing. You reminded me of Bob Brown, because when Bob played, his whole body was like somehow the song was